Coming up on the Carter Cadence.
You come in with knowing there's talent, familiar with the program. What led you to back to Northwest Whitfield taking that job?
I always loved Northwest Whitfield High School and in the community, that area. That to this day, Dana and I talk. We've loved every place we've coached, but that is our favorite. And if we were going to move somewhere to make our home again, from here, that's where we would go.
Hello and welcome back to the Carter Cadence. I'm your host, Brooks Carter. Welcome into another edition of the show, and excited about today's show as we'll have my former head football coach, Mike Falleur, joining us, formerly of Northwest Whitfield High School, also coached at Rica for 2 years. Prior to that was all over the state in the 90s, including Burke County, Tucker, and Elbert County. We'll talk a little bit about that and how he wound up back in Arkansas. So really excited about that conversation with Coach Mike Falleur, who is now retired. That's going to be our coaches conversation in today's show. We will have our player spotlight coming up here in just a few moments. And then in our NWGA Throwback segment, going to go with a hometown kid for me, Dalton, Georgia. One of the greatest to ever do it in our entire area, doing it big in the NFL right now. I'm thinking about going with maybe a theme over the next few weeks of doing current NFL players from our area as the NFL draft is approaching here in just a couple of weeks. I thought that might be kind of fun to do. And so this week's throwback segment is going to feature former Dalton Catamount Jahmyr Gibbs, former Alabama Crimson Tide and Georgia Tech player as well. So let's go ahead and set up the show here with our usual reminders. You can find the show on YouTube at Brooks Carter Media. You can find it on Spotify as well as Apple Podcasts by searching Brooks Carter Media. Hit like and follow and subscribe. Like this video, in fact. It'll help drive us up the charts and get the show some more exposure to those who maybe haven't seen it yet. You can follow along on social media. I'm at Brooks Carter Media on Instagram and TikTok, at Brooks A. Carter on X, and then follow Northwest Georgia Football on Facebook, Twitter, and X. That's just at NWGA Football. So that sets up the show. Let's go ahead and get into it. Here is this week's Player Spotlight. So this week's Player Spotlight is Xavier Rucker from Allatoona with the Buccaneers. This is our newest team to the NWGA football family, and this guy is an absolute weapon on offense. He's listed as both the running back and wide receiver. We'll just call him an athlete. Get the ball in his hands, look what he can do. Going up, making that catch in traffic there, impressive job. Had him split out all the way at split in there. Now they got him at running back, and watch this cut here. I mean, he is truly a big-time one-cut guy, reverses the field there, takes it all the way to the house for a touchdown. Unbelievable play there. This is against Woodland. Got him lined up as the deep man in the backfield here. This play right here, watch this one cut, and he's gone. Nobody touches him into the end zone. Explosive speed is what he has. Now he's lined up in the slot as they go an empty set here. Throws it over the top, gets himself wide open behind the Adairsville defense and takes it to the house there. And you'll notice they line him up everywhere here on tape. Just look at the quick feet and explosion once he gets the ball in his hands as he takes it, dives to the pylon, gets in. That's another touchdown against Adairsville. Back against Woodland here. Little stutter step in the backfield. Not afraid to lower the pads if he has to, but he is definitely got some impressive top end speed. Watch this right here. One cut. I mean, just the guy was absolutely on his rear end trying to catch up to him. Finally knocked out of bounds near the goal line. They go deep to him here over the top. Watch him adjust to the ball and make a catch in traffic. Big chunk play to get him down inside the red zone. against Woodland once again here. Gets kind of bottled up, but watch him hurdle over his offensive lineman, continue to drive the pads forward for a first down. Now wind up all the way at split end. Great route here as he splits through the defense. Quarterback does a good job putting it on him, and he scores. Little toss sweep here out of the I form. A good lead block from the fullback, but watch that speed. That just gets him all the way down there to the house, really almost untouched. Once again here, watch this catch. Up in traffic, making the catch in the end zone, just threw it up for grabs for him. The versatility with him is what's so impressive. Little spin move in the backfield here, explodes out, gets down the sideline, almost takes that one to the house. Now he's lined up back at wide receiver again. This is against Cass. They find him over the top for a touchdown there. Hands off to him from the running back position, and watch that speed get him to the edge there. No one going to get him into the end zone. Touchdown. Back against the Daresville once more here. This is really good. Like he was blocking essentially. Quarterback does a great job improvising. Finally gets the ball to him. Smart play, heady play from both quarterback and running back there. He was not even a wide receiver on that play. They hand off to him against River Ridge here. He gets down inside the goal line for a touchdown. Double move here, and they wind up throwing to him on the underneath here. Reverses field. I think he wound up getting maybe a couple of yard gain out of it, making something out of nothing. Delayed handoff here on a counter. Hurdles a man, gets him out of the way. Appeared to have big games against a couple of Bartow County opponents, Daresville and Woodland. Big, deep in route there on the square end, finds him for a decent chunk play down the field, buried in their own end zone here. And I mean, he about took that one. He was about one step away from maybe taking that one to the house. Top of the screen here, get him coming in motion on the jet sweep. And you can just see how fast he is. He almost outran the snap. He had to slow down a little bit there to even get the handoff because he was moving so fast, ready to get that football on the jet sweep. Go back to him under center here and just explodes through the defense. Eventually brought down after a huge chunk play. Go back to him in the I form here. Pretty good looking run there. And definitely that one, like, he's got some moves, but just that one cut is so explosive, and that was what made him so fun to watch there on film. That is Xavier Rucker from Allatoona. He was one of the top 5 leading returning rushers in the Northwest Georgia football area, averaged over 100 yards a game last year for the Bucks, as they will look to get back to the postseason for the first time in a couple of years, in a tough region, I might add, as they line up with Cartersville and Cedartown and Hiram and Cass and Dalton and Woodland, one of the toughest regions in the state. But once again, that's this week's Player Spotlight. Xavier Rucker, running back from Allatoona. When we come back, we will get into this week's coaches conversation with former Northwest Whitfield and Villa Rica head football coach Mike Falleur. Stick around. This is the Carter Cadence.
Welcome back into the Carter Cadence, now joined by former Northwest Whitfield and Villa Rica head football coach Mike Falleur, who I might add was my head coach in high school. So this is a really a personal treat for me to have Coach Falleur on. Coach, how have you been? I know you've been retired for about 3 seasons, is it now?
3 seasons, yeah.
So
I'm doing great.
How have you been?
Well, I'm doing great. You know, I moved back home, I guess now it's unbelievable, 13 years ago, back to Arkansas, back to Fort Smith, and coached for 9 years at my high school, and kind of had a mandate to turn it back around because it had gotten pretty bad, and I think we did a decent job. But then, you know, I'd always ask, and I always go back to Coach Chappell. I got to be pretty good friends with him, and you know, I always ask him, when did you know to retire? He goes, "Oh, you'll know." And so I knew I'd done it for 39 years, 30 years as a head coach, and I was ready, and I've enjoyed every minute of it.
So are you still living in Fort Smith, or where are you at now?
No, actually, 3 years ago, right before I retired, matter of fact, I was with my sister, and we have a place out here in the country called Rudy, and it's got a creek that we call it the Rudy Creek, but it's also called the Frog Bayou. And Dana and I always talked about having a cabin in the mountains on a creek or whatever, and we saw this thing that was for sale, and the 82-year-old lady lived here, and we came out here, and she kind of liked us, and we liked her, and she was moving back with her family, and so we bought this little cabin out here on the Frog Bayou, and got 30 acres, and that's where we're at.
That's awesome. That sounds like a little peaceful haven you have there. So that's amazing.
It is.
That was one of the questions I was going to ask you, was when you knew to step away, and I actually added it up there. It was 30 years that you were a head coach. How did you see things change over those 30 years? Because it changed quite a bit, I would imagine.
Well, I don't know so much that kids changed, and I think parents changed more.
That's probably true.
Than kids, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, I just saw parents became way more involved with their kids' sports activities and than when I first started. I mean, but it changed, and now, I mean, golly, just in the last 3 to 5 years, with all the transferring from school to school and the really not many rules about it. Now you're talking about this NIL stuff in high school. I mean, so that to me is way bigger than what changed over my 30 years. I would not want to deal with the stuff that's going on today.
Yeah, honestly, it's probably changed more in the last 4 years than maybe it did the entire 30 years you were a head coach.
I agree with that. I agree.
I mean, that's part of what ran some guys from your generation out, maybe like a Nick Saban. He's talked quite a bit about that. Yeah. So, I've asked this question to several coaches I've interviewed on here. I love kind of knowing the history of a career path, decisions that played into why you took certain jobs. If I'm not mistaken, you were an assistant at Northwest Whitfield at one point, correct?
That was my very first job. Yeah,
that's what I was thinking. And so you're at Tucker, you're at Burke, you're at Elbert. You had some success at all those schools. Went to a state final at Burke County, state semifinal at Tucker, and then you come to a place that's never really had anywhere near that level of success. Honestly, still hasn't. Northwest Whitfield's never been able to get the monkey off the back of getting past the second round of the playoffs. But you come in with knowing there's talent, familiar with the program. What led you to back to Northwest Whitfield taking that job?
Well, there's lots of reasons why you change jobs, and a lot of times it's not good reasons. You let something. What's the old saying that the pasture always looks greener on the other side of the fence?
Oh yeah.
So a lot of the job changes that I made because of that. And I look back at it now as an old guy. I'm glad I went to every place I went to because I met great people, great kids, the whole bit. But some of them I wished I'd have got past the negative part and stayed there to kind of reap the benefits of what I had worked so hard the first 2 or 3 years to get it to where I thought it was right. But going back to Northwest, something happened there in Elberton that was not really good. And I had several coaches, and they were like, hey, let's go. Well, I always loved Northwest Whitfield High School and the community, that area. That to this day, Dana and I talk. We've loved every place we've coached, but that is our favorite. And if we were going to move somewhere to make our home again, from here, that's where we would go. And so, I just knew it was a good place, great kids, great parents, just a good all around place to live. And that's really why we went back.
So I've thought a lot about this team in particular because it's been 20 years since that team. In fact, the very first episode of this show that I did, I do a throwback segment every week, and I still have all the old highlight reels from my time and prior to that, because Drew was in high school at that point, so we still had them laying around, and I've been able to digitize them, get them like rip them from a DVD and I can post them on social media now. And I made Caleb Callahan my throwback player because he's one of my all-time favorite players. But I've thought about that 2004 team quite a bit. They accomplished several things in the big picture of that program, including tying a school record for wins, winning the first state playoff game in school history, and they finished ranked. I believe they're still the only team that ever finished ranked in the AJC poll at the end of the year. What do you remember most about that team?
Well, now you're going on a guy that almost forgot about this meeting this morning. That's how bad my mind. But if I remember right, that was my second year at Northwest. And
Third year,
okay, because we'd been in Atlanta for 2 years, and those guys, it was and Caleb's one of my favorite players too. But there were a bunch of them: Kobe Bryant, R.J. Pierce, Corbin. Now I can just name a bunch of them. They just had a thought belief that they were going to win, and that they worked and they put in the time. And I guess the game I go back that I remember the most, there's several of them, but it was the Dalton game, and we were winning, and we had to keep the ball to make sure Dalton didn't get it back to have a chance to win. And they went on about a 7-minute drive, and Caleb Callahan was as tough as any of them. Ryan, at fullback. So they were a great group of kids, hard workers, and and I think you can look at most every one of those guys. They're successful today, as grown men and family men.
Yeah, there's 2 games I remember as a kid. I think I was in 6th grade, and I think about the sub-region championship against LFO.
Oh yeah, that was exciting.
Yeah. Well, lost by 1 point, but then the next week, you go down to North Clayton and beat a 10-0 team by 1 point. And that might have been the 2 most exciting weeks of high school football back-to-back that still to this day that I've ever experienced. It was unreal stuff. And looking back at the film, one of the things that I was showing it to Drew, one of the things that stuck out to me was the community support at the LFO game. We had standing room only students down behind the end zone. It doesn't look like that anymore.
No, I mean, now that you say that, I mean, you talk about that was one of the most exciting games, and I hate to say it, I think we went on 2 down there on the extra point play and would have scored, but to win the game. But I just now that you say that, I remember all those kids in the end zone, and that place was just packed to the gill, and how exciting it was. And then go to North Clayton the next week. And, they jump on us right out of the chute. If I remember right, a halfback pass for a touchdown on the first play. And I'm like, oh, Lord. But there again, there's that group of guys that just never gave up. And we just stayed in there and able to take the lead late and win that game against a very, very talented football team.
Yeah. DJ Shockley's dad was the head coach. I remember that about that squad, too. And I remember the 2 onside kicks in the 4th quarter. I don't know if I think one of them was an accident.
One of them was called, and one of them was told to squib the ball on the ground, and he just missed it. And luckily, we were able to recover it to put that game away. So, yeah, you're right. That one was not called.
That's what I thought I remembered, that wasn't intentional. Usually you don't onside kick with the lead because we had the lead at that point.
That's right.
One of your former assistants took over as the head coach when you left to go to Rica. Josh Robinson. He was the defensive coordinator through my whole time playing for the Bruins. He's still at the helm 15 years later. He's now the winningest coach in program history. How often do you talk with Coach Robinson?
Not a whole lot. I mean, I talked to him on occasion, but then I was able to go out to a game this fall. And got to talk with him. He's done a good job. I'm very proud of Josh and what he's done there. And it's just so different now. The time I went back than what it was when we were there. But no, I'm proud of Josh. He's done a really good job.
And with that in mind, if you look big picture at Northwest Whitfield's program, they'd had pockets of success prior to you getting there. I mean, they won a region championship just a few years before you got there, but they were never able to to sustain it long term without having some of those losing seasons pop in here and there. And that 2004 team started what is still ongoing, 20 straight years of non-losing seasons. You talked about how reaping the rewards of what you built somewhere with your coaching staff. How does that make you feel knowing that this program, that a streak that started under your leadership is still going? This program has been able to sustain success now over 20 years.
Well, it makes you feel good, makes you proud that you look back when you get done at all the different things and what you've done, and my biggest point of pride is just I look back at all the people that I got to be around and hopefully influence some, and Northwest Whitfield special me, and the fact that that's where I met Justin White and was able to take him in and hopefully help him change his life. But the fact that they're winning every year, I mean, that doesn't surprise me. But the type of kids that they've got hard, unless it's changed, they got hard working, hard nosed guys that are fun to be around. And I mean, like I told you, Dan and I've talked many times, and I coached at a bunch of really good schools, really good athletes. But that place there was different. It was just a pleasure to go to work every day. It really wasn't work. It was just fun to be there.
Coach, I don't think I've really asked you this much. I'm trying to remember you even talking about this at any point with us. I've asked every coach this as I've interviewed them here. Which coach influenced you the most? As a guy who is now retired, I'm sure you have a coaching tree, a realm of guys that you've influenced. But what about you yourself?
Well, I mean, I have to start with my high school football coach, Ron Toothaker. I mean, he's really the reason that I wanted to become a coach. I mean, I just loved the way he made me feel when I was a player. And I mean, he was hard-nosed. He would get in your stuff, but you knew it was for the right reason. And so that started it. And then, Lloyd Bohannon at Griffin, I learned a lot. Coach Murray at Northwest. I mean, there were things that, good and bad that I learned that I wanted to do or not do. And then I always tried to be around coaches that were successful and especially young, keep my mouth shut and listen. And Coach Chappell, I go back to him. I think he was a great influence on me, and Coach Pilcher down at Thomas County Central, those guys. So, and then Ken Hatfield at Arkansas when I was a GA. So several guys, but, it all started back with my high school football coach, Coach Toothaker.
Do you have a favorite memory from your time coaching? I know you made so many different stops over the years. And I think when I was growing up, I didn't realize just how good some of the teams you coached in the 90s were. I didn't have any perspective of that when I was a kid. Now I can look at it and see, like, man, like, obviously Tucker was good. We went up against them twice in the playoffs and got smoked both times.
Yeah, I remember.
Well, I mean, we did have the lead against them once.
We did for a brief few seconds.
Yeah, but do you have a favorite moment from your time coaching? We'll say here in Georgia, since that's kind of on topic with our show here.
Right. I don't know. There's one favorite moment. There are several that I look back on. I mean, obviously that game of beating Dalton with that third year that we were there. Those two wins in the playoffs where we really weren't supposed to win against North Clayton and Douglas County, those stick out. At Tucker, those kids, that was a lot of fun, but, that we were pretty talented. And we, down in Dublin, Georgia, when we missed a field goal, that's not a good moment, but we missed a field goal to go to the state championship. And to this day, I can talk to that boy that kicked that ball, and he's like, Coach, that ball was good. They had those old school goalposts that were not very high.
Were short. Yeah.
And this kid could kick, I mean, unbelievable. And it was so high, he said, I'm telling you, the referees couldn't see it. So, plus we were in Dublin. And then at Burke County playing for the state championship when nobody really gave us a chance. And we ended up losing 21-19 on a really was a missed extra point earlier in the game. But those are just some of the few. And then I guess the biggest memories I have are the kids that I got to coach. I mean, when I get to hear from them, like you, calling and saying, "Hey, coach, will you do this?" I mean, it makes you think back about all the good times, and hopefully there's some good memories on the other side as well.
Yeah, definitely. So, this past week, we'll wrap up here in just a moment, but
Okay.
this past week or so, for the first time ever, you're talking about kind of some blunders, or maybe some moments you didn't want to remember. For the first time in 15 years, I went back and watched the Rome game for my senior year in high school.
I knew you were going to say that.
And
yeah, that's one you don't want to remember.
I actually made a social media post out of it because it's the first time I'm like, I got to share this story because and I had people reaching out to me saying, we heard about this. People never believed me when I told them about this. They heard about it, but they'd never seen how it actually happened.
I wish it wasn't true.
Right? I mean, yeah, surely. Coach Jackson texted me and goes, "Send me that video." I haven't ever looked at it again. Send it to me. So, yeah, if you haven't seen the post, I'm sure you have, the audience. But in the last week or so, we lost in the victory formation at Rome High School. The worst part about that too, I was texting with a couple of buddies, Aaron Iverson and Shag McDaniel. The worst part about that wound up being it kept us out of the playoffs.
Yeah.
Because had we won that game,
and that was after a rough start that year. I mean, we had lost early in the year, and then we were like on a five game winning streak, and Rome was unbelievable, and we had outplayed them and fixing. That now that you mention that, you go back to that, and I can remember it like that's one thing this old mind can remember like yesterday. I remember looking across the field, and their coaches aren't even watching the game anymore. They're packing their stuff up. Everybody's leaving. And, we had even called a timeout to go over, hey, if the balls drop, fall on it, blah, 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 blah. And how it got kicked through that pile of people, I'll just never forget standing there watching that guy run by me. I wanted to pull a Woody Hayes. I wanted to tackle him. But,
yeah,
exactly. I tell people we practice, and I think you'll remember this. That is something we practice every Thursday. So I'm here at Northside practicing that, and these kids are like, "Coach, why do we do it every Thursday?" And I said, "Let me tell you why this happened." Yeah. And they're like you. They're like, "Oh, no way. There's no way." I said, "Oh yeah. Unfortunately, there is a way." So. That's one I would like to forget.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like I had a chance to tackle him too. Our safety man ran up and basically chop blocked me.
Yeah.
I swear to this day I would have tackled him had our safety guy not ran up. I wish
he would have. I wish he wouldn't have tackled you.
Because that was the worst part was they scored. If we would have tackled them or anything, they scored.
Game's over. Game's over.
Yeah. So, I just thought I had just watched that for the first time in the last couple of weeks, and I just thought it'd be an interesting thing to bring up. I mean, memories good and bad, that builds character. So
that builds some character, I guess. Boy, character I really didn't want, but that was a bad deal. I mean, because we had played so good, and we're fixing to beat. Well, I don't even remember what they were ranked. They were the best team in the region, and had got after them pretty good.
Well, actually, Chattahoochee was because Chattahoochee went up winning.
That's right.
They went up winning the state championship that year. So, that was just how things went my senior year. We lost games in the most unconventional ways possible. Yeah. So, that's what I tell everybody. But Coach, I appreciate you coming on with me. It's been a pleasure to talk with you and catch up. I hope you and Dana are doing great.
We're doing good. Thank you for having us. And you tell your family and your mom and dad and everybody I said hello.
Welcome back into the Carter Cadence. Hope you guys enjoyed that conversation with my former head football coach, Mike Falleur. A lot of fun catching up with Coach. He's one of my all-time most influential people in my life. I wouldn't just say coaches. I would say in my lifetime, he's been one of the most influential people. So it was really special for me to have him on. I've interviewed him before in previous projects that I've done media-wise, but it's been a really long time. Was not nearly as established in my career as I am now. So, I don't even know if I was married the last time I interviewed him. Now I got a wife and kids. So it was really great to catch up with him and see how he's doing. And I hope you guys enjoyed that. So this week, our NWGA Throwback segment will take you just across town from where Northwest Whitfield is to the Dalton High School, as we will focus on Jahmyr Gibbs, class of 2020. His senior football season was 2019, and boy, did we have some unbelievable talent in the area that year. That was also, I believe he actually finished runner-up, believe it or not, for our NWGA Football Player of the Year that year too, Lad McConkey. Now, Jahmyr won all sorts of other awards, and I think that was kind of what played a role in that. I was not a part of the staff here at that point, but I think they wanted to award Lad for what he was able to do. But an unbelievable set of players who came through in that class in 2019, probably the most talented class of players that we've had in a while. You got 2 NFL players there. I believe James Griffin was in that class, who just finished up his college career. One of the state's all-time leading rushers. So unbelievable numbers from Jahmyr his senior year. Rushed for over 2,000 yards, had over 30 touchdowns, including a game you're going to see here in just a moment against Ringgold, which was one of the all-time great games in state history. Had 428 yards rushing and 8 touchdowns. Both of those numbers top 10 all-time for a single game in Georgia. Let's get into it. Let's roll the tape. So starting against Ringgold here, as I mentioned, he went off on this team that night. And just watch this. The thing that sticks out to me about Jahmyr is how smooth he is. It almost doesn't even look like he's trying at times because of how just fluid he is carrying the football. He'll look like he's just kind of jogging, and then he'll hit that second gear and just take off. This is against, I believe this is Creekview, into the end zone there for a touchdown. This is Dalton was playing in 6A at this point. Got him back returning kicks here against Sequoia. Breaks a tackle, spins out of another, gets a couple of good blocks downfield here, and then just hits that second gear and blows by the Sequoia defender to get in the end zone. Ran a little wildcat with him here. I don't remember what the exact situation was. Watch him just explode down the sideline here, and the cutback ability. They had a really solid quarterback at the start of the year, but by the end, they had to start playing kind of a younger guy, and they started running a lot of wildcat. This is against Harrison here, as he just cuts up the middle, slices through that defense. He had a lot of good games against Harrison. His sophomore year was kind of his coming out party in a nationally televised game against the Harrison Hoyas that included Justin Fields starting at quarterback on the other side. I don't have his sophomore highlights. These are only Jahmyr's senior highlights, but Jahmyr had rushed for over 100 yards in that game as a sophomore. Against the Northwest Whitfield Bruins here, just leaving guys in the dust here. No chance. That's actually my cousin, number 50, that I think had a chance to tackle him there at the end, Jeb Rucker. Look at that little high step in there, a little Deion Sanders look against Creekview, gets into the end zone for a touchdown. Back against Ringgold here in that record-breaking performance, one of his 8 touchdowns on the night here. I mean, these guys, he just made them look silly. And I would have looked the exact same way. I was a very average-looking high school football player like the rest of those guys on the field for Ringgold. This is against Cartersville, I believe, in a preseason game, if I'm not mistaken. Good-looking run there. Keeps it on the Wildcat here, down the left sideline, and just blows everyone away. I mean, just pull away speed. Same opponent here once again, and he's gone. No chance. 23's got pretty decent speed for a high school football player, but he doesn't have Jahmyr Gibbs' speed. If I remember correctly, Jahmyr ran under a 4.40 at the NFL Combine a couple of years ago. Back here against Ringgold again. The thing about these touchdowns that he had against Ringgold, I think at least 7 of the 8 touchdowns came from 50 yards or further out. That makes it pretty easy to get over 400 yards. Back against Creekview here and just explodes down the sideline. I mean, it's unbelievable how he blows away angles. I mean, it just leaves you with your jaw hanging open looking at that speed. And he's doing it at the NFL level now. It's not like he was just doing it against a bunch of scrubs in high school to make himself look really good. You know, that you'll see some people's tape in high school that look like that. This is a punt return against Northwest Whitfield. He has backed it up so far at every level. He was the ACC's leader in all-purpose yards as a sophomore, came to Alabama, wound up being an all-SEC caliber football player there, wound up getting himself drafted in the, I want to say he was a first-round draft pick by the Lions, at least the first 2 rounds. My memory's escaping me here. But he's gone on to the NFL, and look at how good. I mean, he came into a great situation with the Lions, but they've used him so well. Yeah, this is definitely against Cartersville here, preseason scrimmage. This is a talented Cartersville team. I think this was maybe either the last Joey King Cartersville team, or it may have been the first Connor Foster Cartersville team. Either way, they were good. And back here against Creekview, I want to say this is probably the 4th or 5th touchdown against them. Dalton was in a really tough region in 2019. I think they made the playoffs. They only wound up going, I think, 7-4 under Matt Land. I think it was the last time they made the playoffs under Matt Land. They wound up moving into an even tougher region the next 2 years after this. Back against Ringgold again. Another long touchdown run. We'll just let this one roll out here and make this the final play. This is against Northwest Whitfield again, into the end zone for a touchdown. And they're all touchdowns. They all basically are touchdowns. I mean, just one of the most remarkable talents to ever come through the area. Jahmyr Gibbs, this week's Northwest Georgia Football Throwback Player of the Week. So hope you enjoyed looking at some of those highlights. When I went to Jahmyr's huddle page, it looks like a few other people have enjoyed looking at his high school highlights over the years. Over 100,000 views on a kid's huddle page is that's top-notch stuff. That means you're really, really popular, really talented football player when you can hit 100,000 views on a high school football player's huddle page. So Jahmyr Gibbs, this week's Throwback Player. Thank you for tuning in to this week's edition of the Carter Cadence. Coming up on next week's episode, we will hear from North Murray head football coach Preston Pogue. We'll just go one county over this week to talk with a man who has established one of the most consistent programs in the Northwest Georgia football area. We'll talk to him about that. It's his 10th year at North Murray. His previous 9, all winning seasons, all trips to the playoffs. So we'll talk about how he has built a very consistent product and how he's able to maintain and sustain that each year. So an exciting conversation with Coach Pogue. Be sure to tune in for that next week. Thank you guys for tuning in to another edition of the Carter Cadence. Follow along each week on our YouTube channel at Brooks Carter Media, on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well. Just search the Carter Cadence there. On social media, you can follow me. I'm at Brooks Carter Media on TikTok and Instagram, at Brooks A. Carter on X, and then follow Northwest Georgia Football on social media, Facebook, X, and Instagram at NWGA Football. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. We'll catch up next week. This has been the Carter Cadence.